as far as like, aren't there just billions of points of view? Well, yes, there are billions of points of view. But again, we are all part of the conversation. And so in response, yes, even if there is no life after death, even if there is no absolute meaning, that means that there is life before death, and there is meaning before death.
Mr. Anderson, I don't think you answered the question, so I'll ask it again.
Please do.
He says there's no ultimate foundation for ethics given your worldview.
Yes.
No ultimate meaning in life and no free will for humans either. You say that it needs to be meaningful to us. It's at least meaningful to us. Was it meaningful to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway? Was his determination of what was meaningful for him just as valuable or meaningful as your perspective that he was wrong?
Meaningful is different than defensible. I work with murderers and pedophiles all the time. I have a least favorite pedophile.
Are they wrong?
He's very annoying. Yes.
They're absolutely wrong.
They are absolutely wrong. Or they are technically intersubjectively wrong.
So they're not absolutely wrong?
No, because it's all a conversation.
So the debate's over, friends.
They are intersubjectively wrong.
So you admit, Mr. Anderson, that they are not absolutely wrong. The Green River Killer is not absolutely wrong. Ted Bundy is not absolutely wrong. Child rapists are not absolutely wrong. And you came to debate that your worldview provides a foundation for ethics?
Yes, the humanist perspective does provide a foundation for ethics because, again, rape is wrong, murder is wrong, according to the cultural conversation that we are all of which a part.
So if a society draws a circle around themselves and says that you can kill and cannibalize other human beings, as long as they're a large enough society that draws a circle around themselves and they determine that it's right to eat other humans?
Some cultures have believed that, yes.
Is that okay?
They are part of the conversation.
Is that ethical?
Depends on the context.
So killing and cannibalizing other human beings could be ethical in your system.
If you're frozen after a plane crash and are soccer players, perhaps.
I think you missed it, Mr. Anderson. I'll say it again. Killing and cannibalizing another human being could be ethical so long as you have enough people that agree with you.
That's not what would make it ethical. It would not be the agreement. It would be the conversation and the navigation and the negotiation. So, for example, a mercy killing would be an example of ethical killing. Because again, the best version of that person would agree. In my ethics class in divinity school, I argue that the second best version of serial killers want to be killed. So that's a common ground that you and I have.
So, Mr. Anderson, given what you've just said, why ought we to love our neighbors rather than eat them?
Because that is what they prefer. And that is part of the cultural conversation. And yes, all of these groups should be part of the conversation. And I think we should be horrified by what Mao and Stalin and Pol Pot have done.
But you've already admitted, Mr. Anderson, that there's no absolute above Mao or Stalin or Pol Pot. So let me finish the question.
Yes.
Why should we be horrified when there is no absolute standard to hold them to? You've already agreed that if they decide as a culture and community that what they did was right, morally right, then they're right in your system. And there's no complaint.
Because the victims would not agree. And the victims also have a say.
The victims, you believe, are descendants of bacteria.
Yep.
Let me ask, and your side had made the indication, at one point it was said that the Greeks gave us this great civilization. Let me point out that Alexander the Great not only enslaved millions of people, but in his battles in basically conquering the known world at that time, killed millions of people as well. And so by what standard do you say that the Greeks gave us a great civilization, and at the same time say, yeah, except they also enslaved millions of people and killed millions of people in the process? Is there anything outside of what you call a conversation whereby someone like Alexander the Great can actually be judged?
You are making a caricature of our statements, so you have to listen to us carefully, please. I talked about Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics. I named them. I did not mention Alexander the Great. Of course, he can show us other things too besides killing that we can emulate, his valor, his courage, and all that. But at the same time, I did not talk about him. I said that the Western ideas of justice, civilization, those ancient ideas, our traditional ideas are based on those ancient ideas that we find in Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics. I brought that in, and they did not have Christian God at that time, So that's what I wanted to say. So therefore, what you are saying is not quite right to put that on me. And also, secondly, well, I can stop there, of course, and then I can go on other things,
Right after you made that statement, this will sort of help me to clarify what I was asking. I was talking about the consistency of the worldview of these systems. You, I believe, said that the Constitution of the United States, did you say, is totally secular?
It is a secular constitution, yes.
Secular constitution. So when you look at the authors of the Constitution of the United States, and you look at how they interpreted their own words in regards to the value of human life and things like that, you don't think it's important to recognize the prevalence of the Christian worldview that formed the language that they used?
Rich, isn't it? That Greek philosophers can be praised while their nations committed heinous acts, yet if one praises Christ, then he's blamed for the heinous acts of Christians. So then Plato and Aristotle can be judged on the face value of their words and actions, and it would be misleading to judge otherwise, but the same isn't true for Christ. Seems to me that these atheist academics are taking an inconsistent stand. Of course, atheism gives someone no foundation, no grounding for moral beliefs, nor does humanism. If it's all just one big conversation and everyone's views are equally valuable, then from whence cometh the moral condemnations atheists have on the God of the Bible, or for him? For atheists to condemn the God of the Bible, they must first borrow human value and human dignity from a faith-based worldview, and then they must ignore the greater value of the Creator who created this entire universe, and finally make moral judgments against God, the Israelites in the Bible, or Christians of today, when on their moral view, all moral claims are equally valid. And there's no empirical evidence, no empirical method to fully prove, to absolutely prove that any moral view is correct. Yet they'll faithfully defend their atheism within their faith, with their faith in their ethical framework. Ironic, is it not? Christ is king, and Christianity is the only view which provides a cohesive, consistent view of morality, meaning, and so much more.